What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, former trainer turned colorful analyst and commentator, Teddy Atlas, weighs in on the highly anticipated legendary showdown between former undisputed heavyweight world champion Iron Mike Tyson and former four-division world champion, superstar, iconic boxer Roy Jones Jr., which was set to take place in September, which is moved back now to November 28th. Teddy Atlas weighs in on this showdown. Roy Jones initially wasn't happy with the fact that the fight was postponed and delayed, and he even, stated that he might pull out the fight. But now, since Roy Jones has been more compensated for the fight, according to reports, and he's satisfied with it taking place November 28th. But with that said, Teddy Atlas breaks down the fight. Teddy Atlas being a very, very close representative of Iron Mike Tyson at one point in time, being there with Customato and being around Mike Tyson from the mud up. So Teddy Atlas is very in tune with Mike Tyson, right? So Teddy Atlas states that he believes Mike Tyson is serious. He doesn't believe that this is going to be just an exhibition bout. He believes that Mike Tyson takes this serious. Now, Teddy Atlas stated the last time we saw Mike Tyson in the ring, he showed the boxing world, his fans, and the boxing pundits and media that he had no interest in fighting anymore, in boxing anymore. So he said you saw Mike Tyson sit on the canvas and quit. He didn't have it in him. Is he now having a resurgence? Is he being reborn? Is he having a newfound hunger for the sport of boxing at the tender age of 54 years old? Teddy Atlas believes so. He says, just looking at Mike Tyson train, he says that Mike Tyson is not taking this as an exhibition. And if Mike Tyson has the mentality he did before the last time we saw him sit on the canvas and quit, he says that he believes Roy Jones Jr., with all his flaws and all the mistakes he makes, will get knocked out. He says Roy Jones was able to cover up all of his mishaps by just being the most athletic boxer possibly we've ever seen grace the squared circle. Roy Jones was able to get away with so many mistakes. Roy Jones was able to get away with so many no-nos in the sport of boxing. Roy Jones was able to take so many chances because of his reflexes, because of his unworldly speed, athletic ability, foot speed. He says, but all of that faded. And once all of his reflexes and father time caught up to Roy Jones, you started to see Roy Jones get knocked out. Because now the other boxers started to catch up to Roy Jones. And Roy Jones never was the most technical, gifted, or skillful guy in the sport of boxing. Not that he couldn't be, he just didn't have to be. And so he didn't choose to work on that part of his game because he was so athletically gifted that Roy Jones didn't have to be technically sound. Roy Jones didn't have to be skillful as far as technique goes. Now, he was skillful because he was athletic. But as far as his technique goes, Roy Jones didn't display the best technique in the world. He said, actually, all Roy Jones did was show you what not to do in the boxing gym, what not to try and attempt to do in the ring. He says that Roy Jones broke all the rules, all the no-nos inside the ring because he had the reflexes to get away with such. But since that has faded, he says Roy Jones was getting knocked out left and right. And this is true from Teddy Atlas. And another thing is, mentally, Roy Jones does not realize his reflexes has faded to the degree that they have faded, right? Roy Jones is not in tune with the fact that his reflexes are completely gone. He's still showing his training methods or is as if he still has those reflexes from the late 80s and 90s. You see Roy Jones training, and he's still throwing 4 and 5 left hooks with his right hand down. You see Roy Jones throwing straight rights with his left hand down. Right? You see Roy Jones throwing hooks wide as the Atlantic Ocean. Open, leaving himself as wide open as the Atlantic Ocean. Right? And so Teddy Atlas says, what was the greatest thing about Mike Tyson? His technique, his defense, his attention to detail. He says Mike Tyson stayed in tight. Mike Tyson was, great at head movement, great at his technique. Even when his father time and his reflexes started to fade, Mike Tyson could always fall back on his technique. He could always fall back on his discipline and skill that Roy Jones never chose to hone. He never chose to mold in his career because he just solely relied on his athletic ability and his reflexes. And he paid for it. He says, and Roy Jones will pay for it against Mike Tyson because, believe you me, Mike Tyson is not looking at this as an exhibition bout. Mike Tyson is looking to redeem himself. And as long as Mike Tyson is serious and truly has the mindset to redeem himself, Roy Jones Jr. is in trouble. Also, I have to say this. Roy Jones is not a natural heavyweight either. Roy Jones moved up and campaigned at heavyweight against Ruiz, and he was successful for one fight. So we have to keep in mind, again, we have a light heavyweight, 175-pounder naturally, versus a natural heavyweight. Yes, Roy Jones is 3 years. Mike Tyson's, younger than Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson is 3 years. Roy Jones is elder, right? Mike Tyson is 54. Roy Jones, he just turned 54, and Roy Jones is 51 years of age. So yes, Roy Jones is younger, slightly, but physically, Roy Jones has taken just as much, if not more, punishment in his career than Mike Tyson. Yes, Mike Tyson, it looks that way because he was in a heavyweight division the totality of his career, right? So you saw him get knocked out by Lennox Lewis brutally. You saw him get brutally knocked out by James Buster Douglas. You saw him in rough, rugged fights and knocked out by Evander Holyfield and the DQ in the second fight, right? And then to the later side of his career, you saw him get knocked out as well. But Mike Tyson physically is the bigger guy. Roy Jones is taller, slightly taller. Roy Jones was more athletic. But Roy Jones has never been as technically sound and gifted as Mike Tyson. Roy Jones was just physically gifted. Roy Jones was just an athlete campaigning as a boxer. That's the difference. Mike Tyson was a boxer with athletic ability. Mike Tyson had impeccable head movement. Mike Tyson had great defense in his prime. Yes, Mike Tyson came up short in the biggest fights of his career. Absolutely. And when guys didn't back down from Mike Tyson, he struggled in those fights. But for the most part, Mike Tyson focused, even at the age of 54, with his technique and his tight defense and his knowledge and his ring generalship, will get on the inside of Roy Jones, who Roy Jones is going to open up. Roy Jones still believes that he's in the late 80s and 90s. Roy Jones is not focused on the fact that he needs to be technically sound to avoid Mike Tyson. You watch Roy Jones train, and he's showing off his hand speed. But at the same time of him showing off his hand speed, he's showing you and showing off his flaws. See, he's exposing his flaws at the same time with showing you that he still has the hand speed. And that mentality of him showing you his hand speed on the pads further lets you know that Roy Jones is still mentally trapped into the late 80s and 90s in his career. Roy Jones still believes that his reflexes are the same as they was then. Roy Jones is not in tune with what's actually taking place with physically with his body. He doesn't feel the slippage. He doesn't understand his reflexes have faded. Now, Roy Jones is very smart. Roy Jones knows the sport of boxing. But when it comes to Roy Jones looking in the mirror, that's where I see Roy Jones have an issue with understanding that he just isn't that guy anymore. It's like Rocky Balboa said to Apollo Creed in Rocky IV. He says, you look at that TV, that ain't us up there no more. We can't do it like we used to. You may not understand it, but that ain't us no more. And that's Roy Jones. He still sees Roy Jones that fought James Toney the first fight. Through his lenses, he still sees Roy Jones that fought Bernard Hopkins the first fight. You just listen to Roy Jones talk. When addressing the possibility of moving forward after this Tyson fight, he said if he was able to compete against Bernard Hopkins, it would have to be in a serious competition. The last time we saw Roy Jones and Bernard Hopkins fight, it was very sad. It looked like two guys that didn't realize and recognize that their time has passed them twice already. And Roy Jones still looking to compete against Bernard Hopkins in a real boxing match, as he stated. But then he stated he understands that Mike Tyson, his competitive nature and Mike Tyson's competitive nature is not going to allow them to just have this as an exhibition. Mike Tyson, once the leather gets traded, once the leather starts flying, there's going to be a switch that clicks for both guys. And the problem with that is Roy Jones is not defensively savvy. So Roy Jones was defensively gifted when he was in his prime. Roy Jones makes huge mistakes on defense, and Mike Tyson will capitalize, as Telly Atlas said. So I can't wait to see how this plays out. But drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed? Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.